Good morning, Judge. Good morning, Council. As you know, I spoke here a couple of weeks ago with the other nominee. But just for the record, I'm here on behalf of the Fatherhood Coalition, which is essentially an advocacy group for men who have problems with restraining orders, who have problems in their divorce, and who have serious problems with their custody issues of the children. And as in last time, I started off and I know you want to keep the focus on the nominee, and I'd like to do that. But as with last time, as I told you, we get hundreds of emails all the time. And I started off by reading a short email to you that I got that morning. I'd like to start with an email this morning that I got from somebody. This is from somebody who is under the restraining order regimen right now. The domestic advocates coach and instruct women what to write on their temporary restraining orders. I have overheard in several courts. I cannot tell you what to write, but the court needs to understand that you are, quote, in fear of harm, end quote, afraid for the safety of you or your child, end quote. All words to that effect. This is the unauthorized practice of law, which is not allowed in the court if the person asking is a man. Try to get the same assistance from the domestic violence advocates, and they will quickly tell you, all right, we are not attorneys and cannot give you legal advice, or words to that effect. This man says, but if I had a sex change, can you help me then? If I had not found a single organization that actually assists men who are victims of domestic violence. When I sought assistance as a victim of domestic violence at the hands of my wife, one domestic violence agency would not open the door and let me in, would only talk to me through the glass. First told me the agency did not service men, and in response to my question as to whether they knew of an agency who did assist male domestic violence victims, the woman responded, and I quote, if you do not leave now, I will call the police. Oh yeah, I was going to stay and chat. Another domestic violence agency had a woman come out of the hallway to meet me and, without asking any questions or finding out any information from me, said, battery used the back door, end quote. After explaining that I was the victim, it still took some time to get inside the agency for an intake. At the intake, a woman asked me how long I had been with my, quote, partner. Apparently, males can be domestic violence victims. They just have to be gay, based on the batteries to the back pump. After receiving a safe plan from a domestic violence agency, following that plan by putting together an escape kit, quote, then filing for divorce and leaving the home with my child, I was ordered by a current judge to return the child to my wife. Apparently, only a woman can flee a domestic violence batterer with the kid. Men can run, but they have to leave the kids behind where they belong, with the abuser. Tis a fair court, says this particular email. And this was in response to a comment that the Greater Boston Legal Services, the Volunteer Legal Lawyers Project, and Legal Advocacy Resource Center work with the domestic violence agencies, none of which will assist the males. So getting to Judge Hanlon's court and Dorchester District Court, I went online yesterday and I looked at the statistics for restraining orders in Dorchester Court. This is from 2008. There were 1,138 restraining orders cases in Dorchester District Court yesterday. Just to give you an overview, overall there were 33,000 cases statewide. Now, Dorchester has a population of 85,000 people. The only courts that were more in Dorchester District Court were Lowell, with a population of 106,000 people, and Springfield, with a population of 151,000 people. So what that says to me, which is in my gut I already knew, which was that there's probably the right word, an eagerness, a tendency to issue restraining orders in a court such as Dorchester District Court. So I would say that on behalf of the Fatherhood Coalition, we don't think that, as Mr. Patterson said, we don't believe that the elevating of Judge Hanlon to the appellate court would be a wise decision, because as was brought out, when there are problems, the only recourse has been in the appellate court. And to get to a couple of points that Councilor Merriman raised about perjury, the anti-SLAPP law was ruled as a reason not to consider any charge perjury in domestic violence law. They rejected outright. They ruled that in a case that came before, they said if someone is bringing a charge under the 209A as a perjury charge, they said you can't do that because it violates the anti-SLAPP law. So just to bring that up to you, you can ask me that later if you want more questions. Now, regarding some of the things Judge Hanlon has said in the past, there's a book by a man named Richard Davis, Domestic Violence Facts and Fallacies. And Richard Davis is a strong supporter of domestic violence laws. In fact, he wants to incarcerate people just on the accusation of domestic violence. He doesn't want to let them out when they've been accused. So Judge Hanlon in this quote is quoted as stating in this book, the system is not equipped to do that is incarcerate people just on the accusation. And they shouldn't be, frankly. This is Judge Hanlon, which is a reasonable thing to say. This person, Mr. Davis, says, if the criminal justice system is not so equipped, why is it that Judge Hanlon and the courts continue to issue restraining orders in Massachusetts at the rate of one every 2 minutes? They're given out like candy, as you often quote, for restraining orders. And so if I remember correctly, I believe that Judge Hanlon has stated in the past something along that line, that they shouldn't be incarcerated, and the purpose of the restraining order is to punish the offender. But then the question is, why are men and fathers being punished without a presumptive right to a discovery of evidence? There's an evidentiary hearing, but there's no right to discover evidence, and without any kind of jury trial, as I've heard in the council before. So I would say that the trend that this is an anti-male statute is pretty clear. In a book by Elizabeth Mulroy called New Uprooted in 1992, Judge Hanlon is quoted as saying, there are more shelters for animals than there are for battered women. And a shelter is a very short-term solution, especially for a woman with children. Nothing about a man with children. We tolerate a society which is profoundly sexist. The idea is sexist against women, but not against men, in violent homes and violent neighborhoods. Many of the men against whom I issue restraining orders have never seen anyone solve a problem in a non-violent way. So when I read this, I read someone who's speaking of the restraining orders coming from a female perspective and not really thinking at all about the male perspective. So I'd like to suggest that the council, when the judge has a chance to make a presentation and ask questions, that they consider some of the following questions. As a proponent of the VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, the underlying premise of which is that men are inherently violent, why does she believe that men are this way? Why does she believe that men are inherently violent? And if not, why support the Violence Against Women Act? Why should any man who comes before her believe that he will get a fair shake when her domestic violence program is based on the idea that men are, in fact, inherently violent? Why does she believe that domestic violence charge results in the loss of one's children, home, finances, and possible employment, does not deserve the protection of discovery procedures in a jury trial? The result of it is so onerous that they should have these protections. Has the judge ever taken any steps to help men who are removed from their homes as a result of domestic violence charge? As Mr. Patterson said, the domestic violence accusation removes men immediately before the hearing 10 days later. Has there been any steps in the fatherhood program of this gentleman raised to protect those men, to find housing for them, to keep them with their children? And who brings more domestic violence complaints, men or women? Who are more complaints granted to, men or women, in Dorchester District Court? I would be interested in hearing the answer to that question. And I guess close to the final end, does she believe that there are false accusations of domestic violence? And if so, what percentage, and what has she done to deal with it? So a lot of questions, I think there's a lot of meat within those questions, and I'll invite any questions that you have.
Councilman,